From age 12 to 18, I was the only student in school who carried her Bible with her. And yes, the other students made fun of me, ridiculed me, and called me Reverend for the remainder of my undergraduate years. Hello, and welcome to my daily walk, the daily show where a Hollywood guy, that's me, walks around and talks about anything and everything except the things I'm contractually bound to conceal. If you want to get in on the conversation, suggest a topic, tell me what an awful job I'm doing and how boring I am, or perhaps you think differently, email me at MyDailyWalk@thiswaytv.com. The show is a weekly or a daily show. Each day of the week is a different theme. Mondays are a meditation on spiritual concept. Tuesdays are a reflection, life lessons from my life. Wednesdays are topical. Thursdays are thematic Hollywood Thursdays. I talk about working in Hollywood, behind the scenes, etc. And Fridays, which is today, is freeform. I just hit record and talk about whatever. And if I get emails, this is the day I read them. Freeform Friday. There is also a bonus day, Saturdays, Saturday free stuff, different format. But figured the diehards who want to hear me babble on about whatever, there's some extra on Saturday. Take a break on Sunday and start again each week. I mentioned in yesterday's episode that as of yet, I have only sent a link to one person. The link to this show. I've only I've told a couple people, like the people that are a couple people behind the scenes on the tech side know about it. I don't know that they listen to it. I haven't even inquired, but there's only one person that I know listens, and that is my mom. Because I'm doing it for me, and then I'm doing it for her, and anybody else who anybody else who discovers it and takes some pleasure in, I don't know, listening and absorbing and perhaps disagreeing or agreeing, for whatever reason you choose to listen, I'm grateful. This is not my job or anything. I don't take my sustenance from this podcast. It's really a journal that I make available, post it in a public place and see what happens. But I will be next week. I've decided next week is the time to send out some links. I've got a list of people that I told about it. Actually, just this week I told a group of people and said, if you are at all interested, give me your email address and I will be sending you a link. And I got, everybody in the group, I don't know if it's, peer pressure or whatever it is, the group dynamics where everybody signed and wrote down their email, whether they really want to get an email from me, with a link to this or not. Well, the guy next to me did it, I better do it. I told them, I said, I don't feel pressured. Don't feel pressured. If you're not interested at all, please don't write your email down. Well, they all did, it looks like. I mean, I kind of did a head count and then later, counted off the email addresses, and it seems like it matched up the head count and the number of emails. So, and I suppose if somebody did feel peer pressure to write the email address down, that they could write down the wrong email address and not get it. Anyway, I don't want to break it down and go on that tangent, but it's a sincere group of people that they've heard me babble on in the past, and so maybe they just want to hear me babble some more. But if you are listening to this, if you are one of those people that have made it this far, you got the link and you've made it this far, then cool. Shouting out to you. But everybody who listens, if you are listening to this, I envision this as a organic kind of grassroots thing. If I'm doing something of value by documenting 30 minutes a day, my daily walk, if it's something of value, I'm going to rely on you to share it. If you consider it to be something of value, that you think that some person pops into your head right now as I'm speaking, that you think might benefit from one of the subjects, one of the topics, or the whole thing, I'm going to leave it to you. I will do some of my own. I've got people popping into my head that I'm going to send it to that are not on that list that I got. But let's see if there is I hate to use the term market. Let's see if there is a demographic that this fits, that's interested in this, and maybe it's just one topic. Maybe the spiritual meditation. Maybe that is something that somebody will benefit from, or the behind the scenes Hollywood. Maybe a young person that doesn't know what they want to do with their life but have considered going into Hollywood. Well, maybe that'll be beneficial to them to hear what they are up against. I don't know. I'm just I'm enjoying doing it. It is a discipline because life is full of all kinds of stuff that screams for our attention. So to be able to do something consistently like this is, I guess, an accomplishment of sorts. Technology has availed, has made it possible to do that fairly simply. So I took a stab at it, and here we go. So that what I read at the beginning. Hold on a second. Where am I? Okay. So what I read at the beginning was an email from my one listener, my mom, and she sent it to she knows that if you send me an email, it's going to get read. If you send it to a particular email address, it's going to get read out loud. It's going to be read into the record, if you will. And she was inspired by something in one of my podcasts, and I don't know what it was, but she wrote a nice long biographical overview of one particular period in her life, and it's stuff that I didn't know. It's like that's already proving to me the value of doing this, that I'm getting to know my mom better. And she lives far away, and it's a dialogue between she and I at this point. And so I'm going to read the whole email. Now, this show, My Daily Walk, obviously has very, very heavy spiritual overtones. I mean, just the name of the show, My Daily Walk, that's, well, I don't need to break down what I mean by that, but I talk often about this worldview that I'm testing, I guess, is the testing it out. I've been testing it out for a while, and really I think that's a fair way for anyone to refer to it. Testing this thing out. Study to show yourselves approved, taste and see. There's all these admonitions or encouragements in the texts that say, walk this way, try it out. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm testing this worldview, and as a result, I've done a lot of study and research and thinking, and that's part of what I'm sharing. That's why we have the Monday meditation, where it's very specific, narrow, a more narrow topic. And so my mom is also testing out that worldview, and this is kind of the history of that. She's giving me, and now us, a picture of when she decided to test out this worldview. So here it is. She starts, and I'll just read straight through, and I'll try not to do any commentary in the middle. I'll just read it all. It's several paragraphs here. And she begins. I love the book of John in the New Testament. It has particular significance for me in terms of my own born-again experience. My parents were members of the Presbyterian Church in town where she was born, and it was a family expectation that we attend this church every Sunday while growing up. It was there I first learned about Jesus. Part of the pastor's Sunday service ritual was to first gather all the children, ages 4 through 8, around the front of the congregation where we all sat on the floor. He then told a story that was age appropriate for all of us, and not necessarily a Bible story. I don't remember a single story. Afterwards, he would dismiss all of us to our respective Sunday school classrooms, so we were never part of the adult service. At the age of 10, we were allowed to remain in the adult service, which I did do. We did have a choice. It was either attend the adult service or go to a Sunday school classroom. To this day, I retain the feelings of, what's missing here, during every single service. I was only 10, 11, then 12, when I came away from every service with the same feeling. We had the usual program of music, a selection of scripture was read, the choir sang their selected song, and then the pastor delivered his sermon. It was all so lifeless, empty, uninspiring, and just plain boring in my young mind. Of course, I was very young and had nothing in the way of experience with other church services in which the community with which I could compare. However, even at a young age, I knew there has to be more about this church thing. And if that's true, where and what is it? At the age of 12, we were allowed to join the Presbyterian Church after we attended a series of church membership classes once a week for 6 weeks. I did that. After completion, a special new members service was held on a Sunday morning, introducing the congregation to each of us. The pastor then gifted each of us with our brand new Bible, a big black Bible. I was 12 years old, and the first genuine excitement I felt having to do with church was receiving my own Bible. I wasted no time becoming familiar with my Bible. I never saw my parents or siblings reading a Bible. I don't recall ever seeing a Bible in our home. I found my own private, quiet space and opened my Bible. I decided to focus on the New Testament exclusively. I reasoned that probably the New Testament will be easier for me to understand. Instead of beginning in Matthew's Gospel, I decided to begin with the book of John. Something I can't explain. That's just what I did. As my eyes fell on the words, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning," I had no idea this was the moment God was performing a spiritual birth within my heart, soul, and mind. There was not a sudden rush of wind, a chorus of angels on high, an emotional onslaught that carried me into another dimension, or an appearance of blinding light. I read the entire Gospel of John, and when I finished, I was left with the resounding answers to all of the questions around what is missing here? Why do I feel so empty? After every Sunday service in the Presbyterian church we attended, I had found the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. This was the beginning for me of being born again. From then on, my Bible, God's Word, became my best friend, my lifeline, my entry into a whole new world. Every single day after that, I carried my Bible with me on top of my school books and went to school. From age 12 to 18, I was the only student in school who carried her Bible with her. And yes, the other students made fun of me, ridiculed me, and called me Reverend for the remainder of my undergraduate years. But I also had many opportunities to share the gospel message with those who chose to listen. At the age of 12, I began to pray for each member of my family, many nights crying myself to sleep. Today, at the age of 75, I thank and praise God to be able to say and know that my parents and each of my siblings became believers, accepted Jesus, and have walked the walk. The inspired word of God is powerful. I just wanted to share. Love you, Mom. So that was a cool email to get because, I learned things about my mom, my someone who was instrumental in shaping me at a young age. So I guess I could give a little bit of my background regarding when I decided to test out this worldview. It was not my mom coming into my room at night and saying, "Son, pray with me." No, wasn't that. But she did keep us in church. My parents split when I was very young, and I don't remember the first time going to church, but I do remember going to church with my mom and stepdad and older sister. And that was maybe 7 or 8 when I first remember going on a regular basis. And we moved around a lot, and so we found a church wherever we went. But then around on age 10 or 11, I moved in with my dad, and that is not that worldview is not being tested on that side of the family. Let me say, a whole different worldview, or innumerable worldviews, or I guess you could say I ventured out and learned a whole bunch of other stuff that a whole bunch of other people in the world believe. Different world religions, different philosophies. At the age of like 12, 13, around the time when she was making her decision, I was adhering to or absorbing a whole slew of contradictory worldviews. The terminology is what's the word, co-opted, or a lot of the terminology from the Christian worldview is used in a lot of other worldviews. The terms are redefined, and I was really good at redefining terms. And then, I'm not going to go into the details, but I had, years later, I'm not going to say when, but I had an experience that drew me back to some of the things that I had learned when I was very young. And then I started to put it into practice, or learn some more, and started testing it. So that's as far as I'm going to go in my own personal. At some point, I'll get into the gory details. It'll be a life lesson episode at some point. But so here I am. My mom's 75 years old, and I did not know that was her experience. I knew that she was, I knew, Mom, that you were testing out the worldview. My whole life I was aware of that, and it has affected me and benefited me, but the specifics are fascinating to me, and thank you for sharing. Thank you. All right, now I'm about to go to a meeting, so shifting gears here. It's Freeform Friday. I get to do what I want. I'm about to go to a meeting. I'll probably be a couple minutes late because of this half-hour podcast, but I'll jump in my car and drive there, and I won't be that late. But it's a meeting with my translator. The nature of this project, the nature of this podcast, the show, I reveal little details every now and then, but I can't keep track of what I've revealed, so I don't know. I know anybody who's listening to every episode might have accumulated those details in their mind and know, he's writing something and he has one investor and he's halfway through or partly through what he's writing, and I probably have mentioned the translator, the source material, some of the source material that the thing that I'm writing comes from some source material that's not in English, and so I have a translator who's translating, and it's a long process, and I'm meeting with that translator today. It's a meeting I set up just to touch bases. He's doing a great job. He just sent me a big chunk of stuff that I asked for, and he's cranking away on the next chunk of stuff that I've asked for. And there's something else I need to ask him for that's not a part of what he has agreed to translate for the rate that he's doing. There's a very specific source material that it's two pieces of material that he's translating, and this other source is much smaller in length, but has some critical information, and I don't have more money to pay him for more, so I'm just going to ask him, can you scan through these 6 documents? They're all it's a series of articles, and can you scan through these and just anything that's related to what we're doing, could you translate it for me? It's important. I'm coming to the point where I'm going to need this content, and I've asked a few other people, and they're like, oh yeah, that's pretty tough. That's tough to translate, because the language that it's being translated from is a rich, deep, meaningful language with multiple definitions. At some point I'll do an episode on that language. You don't even know what language I'm talking about. You don't know. I haven't revealed any of that stuff. So at some point, should I live, inshallah, if it is the Lord's will, I will break down just this language. In fact, I'm reading about the language itself, the alphabet, the first book ever written and printed in this language. And so this guy is an expert. I mean, I just stumbled upon the right guy. Literally, this translator. Let me praise this translator. This guy's incredible. And this is a funny story. Let's see how much time I have left. Yeah, I think I can squeeze it in. So, I've been working on this project for a couple years, and realizing the source material has never been translated into English. But even before I realized that I needed a translator, I was walking the beat. I was reaching out to people that I knew would be familiar with this subject matter. So I was doing my research, like an investigator or a beat reporter. I was meeting people, and I met this guy. I went to a cigar shop, actually. The owner of the cigar shop, a friend of mine, said, hey, you should meet that guy. So I went to his cigar shop, sat around, smoked a cigar, which I don't do much of. So I was stepping out of my comfort zone. But then I struck up a conversation with one of his friends who was sitting next to him, and that guy he found out what I was researching, and he invited me to his place on Friday night. He's like, yeah, every Friday night I just have a couple friends come over and we, sit around and chat, and I'm like, okay. And this guy, turns out he's an artist. He has a huge workshop in his garage, and his home is filled with art of all kinds of art from other people. It's just incredible. Every painting, every drawing, every direction you look in his home. This is a tangent, by the way. Anyway, he invited me over, so I went over, and it was just he and his wife, and I guess his stepdaughter, and then another couple. And we sat and had a great time, and started chatting, and got to know each other, and I'm like, oh, so what do you do for a living? He's like, oh, well, I'm a translator. And this is literally like a week before I realized I needed a translator, so it didn't register with me. He goes, oh, I'm a translator. Oh, interesting. I translate from English to this one language and from that language to English. That's what he does for a living. I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. Fascinating line of work. So then next week I realized, oh, we need to find a translator for this. The investor's going to pay for it. We've got the budget for it. We need to find somebody to do it. We need to find the right person. You can't just find anybody. It's just not that kind of language. And that guy popped into my head. I'm like, oh, I just met a guy. But again, it's like, can't just pick anybody. And so I consulted my historian, who's an expert in this field, and I consulted a bookstore owner who specializes in this content, this language, and that guy's name popped up in both of those conversations. And even my historian says, well, let me ask this other friend of mine who's done some translation. Let me ask her if she'll do it. And she responded saying, yeah, I'm pretty busy, but there's this other guy that's like top notch that you might, and it was the same guy that I had just met literally a week prior. So that really happened. And when I approached him and we finally made the agreement, signed the contract, just got the impression that this guy, the way he's approaching the material, this specific contract for him, it's like his life's greatest achievement. It's like he's treating it as such an honor. I mean, I don't mean treating it like he's deciding to. It's like the content that he's translating is important to him, is of such importance to him that it's almost like he didn't even realize how important it was until he started reading through it. And so every time I meet with him, it's just this wonderful time. And so I'm looking forward to that. Clock is ticking. Got 2 minutes left. So this is kind of difficult to share all this stuff without disclosing certain details, but I think I pulled it off. And that's what this daily walk is also. It's a journaling exercise of whatever the heck is popping into my head, speaking extemporaneously, at the same time self-editing to protect the project, to protect what I've been entrusted with. I mean, I've been entrusted with something that is very, very valuable to a lot of people, and I'm hoping to demonstrate that value to a much larger audience, the English-speaking audience. I'm literally writing the first English version of a very important historical event, something that's never been told in English, and I have the honor and privilege to do that. Wow. So that is also part of why I'm doing this. It's if the project continues the way it's going and turns into a movie or something that the public, for mass consumption, it will raise the value of, I guess, just about anything I do. That this podcast at some point could be looked upon as, wow, that's cool, that's a good thing that he did that. I don't know. It's just an intuition or an inkling, an idea that I responded to, that I continue to respond to every day. So thanks for coming along. Pass it on.